It's taken 2 years, but Israel might finally be about to be thrown out of Eurovision. And if it doesn't happen now, the contest as we know it will be gone forever. Today we're going to look at how we got here and how that expulsion might happen. In the last few weeks, several broadcasters have for the first time stated that they will not participate in Eurovision 2026 if Israel is in the competition. Previously on this channel, we have discussed this issue at length, and now we've reached a critical point, it's time to talk about it again. I'm going to go through what's happened so far and what we can expect over the next few months. That'll include the outcomes from very good to the contest falling to bits. We're also going to re-emphasize why Eurovision is so important to Israel, and therefore why it's such a powerful and essential step to remove them from it. If you're totally unfamiliar with this issue before now, hopefully you'll understand at least a bit of it by the end of this video. As always, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as we do have a lot planned running up to the 2026 contest. That is, provided the contest doesn't implode before then. My socials are in the description too, so is my Patreon. All of your support is appreciated. Before we get into it, we should start with a quick recap of how we got to this point. I've previously discussed at length in these two videos the massive effect and negative effect that Israel being in the competition has had in the last 2 years. For that reason, I am going to quickly go over what happened in those editions, but I'm not going to go super into depth, so you should watch those videos after this if you want more information. There is also a brilliant and absolutely devastating video by Stuart McLean, which was just released today at the time of recording. When you finish watching this video, please go and watch that because it is essential viewing. Now, in 2024, the Israeli delegation showed up to the contest after months of controversy, seemingly with the goal of pissing off as many people as possible. So many complaints were received about their conduct that week, from repeatedly filming other participants backstage without their permission and covertly filming journalists in the press areas, through to their commentators openly calling on viewers not to vote for certain acts because of their political views. They went as far as to call Ollie Alexander a supporter of Hamas. In the end, they were moved out of the delegation area in Malmö to a secluded area at the other end of the building just to stop them from harassing other delegations. As well as that, we later learned that during that week, they received an official warning letter from the EBU. In the end, they finished 5th despite worries they might win the contest, though that did come with a frankly terrifying 323 points from the public. That was 2nd place just behind Croatia. After this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief and hoped that Malmö would never happen again. Fast forward to 2025, and things were, well, quieter in a sense. In the Eurovision bubble, I think a sense of complacency had set in, and there was a naive assumption that took hold that Israel's massive televote the year before wouldn't be repeated. Instead, we came within a whisker of total disaster. Israel finished 2nd overall and won the public vote. They were only overtaken by Austria at the very last moment, and I am yet to find a single Eurovision fan who didn't have their heart in their mouth at that moment. Once again, this was because of a massively inflated public vote. In both cases, 2024 and 2025, this came about in part thanks to a massive advertising blitz paid for by the Israeli government. I've had some analysis provided to me of the Google Ads Transparency Center, which lists all the ads that are placed on Google products, as well as roughly how many impressions were made. We now know that in 2025, the adverts promoting Israel's entry were viewed 68 million times in the EU and Iceland and Norway. That only accounts for 25 of the participating countries and excludes the single biggest market for the contest, which is the United Kingdom. Assuming adverts were placed there at the same rate as they were placed in the 2nd largest market, that's Germany, the number of total ads increases to over 75 million. This passed mostly under the radar in 2024, but in 2025, after the contest, there was uproar. Several participating broadcasters immediately called for a review of the voting system and the use of advertising at the contest, pointing to clear anomalies like Belgium's total number of votes increasing despite their viewership falling. The level of manipulation this year was just way too blatant. It was bad enough last year, but this year was just so barefaced it's almost embarrassing. There is no world in which you win the televote and then get outstreamed by 18 of your competitors, including sauna, coffee, and boat. A great many broadcasters were also, in my opinion, probably a bit spooked by the fact they had to briefly contend with the idea of Tel Aviv 2026. The EBU did respond to these calls in an open letter, saying that while they did not have any indication of foul play, somehow, the question had been asked, so they would look into it. After that, things went quiet for a little while until the beginning of July. That's when the EBU's General Assembly took place. This is a biannual event where all of the broadcasters in the organisation get together and talk about, well, EBU stuff. This meeting is not usually of hugely significant consequence in the Eurovision calendar, so you'd be forgiven for not knowing what it was before now. This time was different. Immediately after the General Assembly took place, reports emerged that there was a huge groundswell of discontent among EBU members about Israel's continued participation in Eurovision. Israeli media even reported at the time that had a vote been held that day, it probably would have gone against Israel and they would have been removed from the contest. Instead, following that, the decision was made to hold a consultation, with a final decision to be made at the next meeting, which is in December. That consultation is ongoing, but this meeting fired the starting gun on a series of events which is now snowballing out of the EBU's control. That said, we wouldn't realise just how bad things were getting until the last couple of weeks. At the start of this month, September, the EBU extended the deadline for countries to withdraw from the contest without penalty. Usually this is in October, but this year it'll be December. This is after the next General Assembly and after this consultation comes back with its findings. At the same time, the EBU released a statement which said that no broadcaster had asked them to exclude Israel. As you're about to see, that particular statement has aged very poorly. Almost immediately after, a series of announcements have come forward. The first came from Slovenia's national broadcaster, who indicated on the 4th of September that their participation depended on Israel being excluded. On September the 8th, Iceland stopped short of outright committing to withdraw, but confirmed they had spoken against Israel at that General Assembly in July, and indicated that their participation would be determined once the outcome regarding Israel's participation is known. After this, the dam started to break, starting on 11th of September, with Ireland releasing a frankly astonishing statement. It read that Ireland's participation would be unconscionable given the ongoing and appalling loss of lives in Gaza. RTE, the Irish broadcaster, is also deeply concerned by the targeted killing of journalists in Gaza and the denial of access to international journalists to the territory, and the plight of the remaining hostages. Not to be outdone, one of the biggest financial contributors and one of the biggest audiences in the contest, in the form of the Netherlands, followed with a statement of their own the very next day. Their statement read, "Human suffering, the suppression of press freedom and political interference are at odds with the values of public broadcasting." And, most explosively, that there is proven evidence of interference by the Israeli government during the most recent edition of the Eurovision Song Contest, in which the event was used as a political instrument. Finally, at least at the time of this video's publishing, Spain confirmed that they will not participate in the next edition of the Eurovision Song Contest in Vienna if Israel continues to participate in the music festival while the massacre in Gaza persists. Spain is one of the 5 countries that automatically qualifies for the final of the contest because of its large financial contribution to the show. Their decision alone blows a hole in the contest's finances to the tune of hundreds of thousands of euros. If the alarm bells were ringing at the EBU headquarters before this, after this, those alarm bells turned into a blaring siren. What happens next is what I will spend the bulk of this video discussing, but I do first just want to make it clear why Eurovision is so important to Israel. On the most basic level, this is clear in their financial investment and use of government social media accounts and advertising, both before the contest to promote the entry and afterwards to claim a kind of victory on the basis of the dubious results they've achieved in the televote. Israeli media and the Israeli government deliberately frame Eurovision as a kind of public referendum on their conduct. And they do that safe in the knowledge that they'll be able to claim a kind of moral victory afterwards and push a narrative that, despite what everything tells us about how the European public feels about Israel, that a majority actually still supports them. If you look at any polling of the last year, that will tell you that that is emphatically untrue. Their entries as well in the last 2 years betray their intentions just as much as their conduct away from stage does too. Last year's entry was originally titled October Rain, which is a very obvious reference, and was packed full of clearly loaded political lyrics that were only changed after the president of Israel himself intervened to call on the broadcaster to do it. This year we got a very similar ballad following the exact same lines and the exact same narratives. This isn't happening by accident. These songs are deliberate, coded justifications for what Israel is doing to Palestinians. Those actions have now been recognized as genocide, both by domestic Israeli human rights organizations and international organizations and charities as well. If Israel is allowed to send an entry, it would be naive to think they're going to do anything different. If you want an idea of just how critical this outlet is for Israel, simply look to the debate over whether the Israeli public broadcaster Khan should even exist. Netanyahu and his allies absolutely hate Khan. That's because on many domestic issues in Israel, they don't follow the government line. For balance, I should mention here, their politics are hardly honourable, and their staff have literally been photographed signing missiles that were later fired into Gaza. So it's not like there's some angels here. Almost every year there is debate, and sometimes a law is even proposed or drafted that would cause Khan to cease to exist. And every year it's met by a stern rebuke from the EBU, reminding the Israelis that if they abolish Khan, they can no longer participate in EBU events, including Eurovision. This alone stands as just about the one single pillar that is keeping Israel's public broadcaster in existence. The current Israeli government is willing to maintain the entire institution purely so that they get this outlet on one night a year. With that in mind, let's talk about what could happen next and the ramifications of each possible outcome. As it stands, we are currently in the middle of the consultation process that was launched by the EBU in July. This is essentially their vehicle to gather as much political capital and weight behind whatever decision they ultimately decide to take, as well as to fully assess the ramifications of the decision either way. As well as that, waiting till December buys everybody time. When that consultation process does come to an end though, ultimately there is a decision to make, and there are only two possible outcomes. Israel stays or Israel goes. Let's start by looking at what will happen if they stay, and I'm going to warn you now, it's not pretty. The first and most obvious consequence is that the 5 countries who've already indicated they would leave the contest if Israel stays will indeed go. What is potentially even more dangerous is that many others have so far made non-committal public statements, along the lines of, we are awaiting the EBU's conclusions, we've had confidential discussions with the EBU, or we will make our decision in December based on the decision taken by the EBU. Based on public statements so far, the countries you could include in this group are Belgium, Denmark, Finland, Lithuania, Norway, Portugal, and Sweden. In recent days, the Polish Minister for Culture has also called for Poland's withdrawal if Israel stays in. The Polish broadcaster is among those that has not made a statement so far. But like I keep saying, because these are public broadcasters and ultimately they will follow the line of their domestic government, this indicates there may be some room for the Polish broadcaster to make the same decision. I should be clear, it's pretty unlikely that all of these countries would withdraw. It's also entirely possible that some countries not on that list might do it while some of the ones on the list stay. I think it's safe to say though that a worst case scenario is probably an equivalent number to this withdrawing. In that case, the number of total withdrawals would balloon from 5 up to 13. Overall, with Israel remaining in the contest, that means a best case scenario has you at 34 participants and a worst case at 26. These numbers are both assuming that the EBU manages to convince Moldova and North Macedonia to return to the contest this year. And without them, the number would drop to 24. This leaves the contest exposed to a huge number of potential threats. First and foremost, with this many countries leaving, it renders 2 semi-finals basically impossible. Let's assume the best case scenario for a moment. Both of the countries that I mentioned just now return to the contest, and every single country stays other than the 5 that have already promised to leave. You can just hold on to 2 semi-finals, in this case with 15 in one semi-final and 14 in the other. Then you have 5 pre-qualified, which is the now Big 4, because no more Spain, and the hosts Austria. That said, the margin for error here is perilously thin. 13-song semi-finals are simply too small when you have 10 qualifiers. And that means if you lose just 2 additional countries to the 5 that have already declared, you risk losing a semi-final. Given that there's every chance that North Macedonia will not return to the contest, I think Moldova is quite likely, then you would only need to lose 1 more of the existing participants. This has massive ramifications for the contest, especially for smaller broadcasters who have to prove the contest's worth and why its value for money every year to boards of directors that are very skeptical. A large part of the value to broadcasters across Europe is that Eurovision offers 3 nights of prime-time television. Generally as well, at substantially better cost than the amount that it would take to fill those slots with alternative programming. When you start taking broadcasters away, the cost of the contest overall doesn't meaningfully increase or decrease. Regardless of the number of semi-finals, the arena must be booked out for the same amount of time. The same prices have to be paid for lighting and effects and staffing, as well as the 1,000 other things that need to be done to get this show on the road. What that means is you end up with less broadcasters being asked to pay more money in order to have an event on the scale that we know it. Either the EBU dips into its own cash reserves, which is a short-term sticking plaster at best, or it has to increase participation fees. That means you have dual pressures that sustain each other in the worst possible way. On one hand, the value of the competition to broadcasters falls if you lose a semi-final. And then, in turn, the value of the contest to the EBU and the host falls because they can't sell as many tickets. And meanwhile, all parties have to put more money in. This will throw participation into jeopardy for countries that are already on the edge financially. That includes both of those potential returnees in Moldova and North Macedonia, and others like Albania who were put onto a loan repayment plan by the EBU this week. Essentially, what this causes is a kind of cascading disaster that will continue in a negative feedback loop until the contest ceases to exist. Even the best case scenario has the potential to trigger this, and that's assuming that from this point on, everything goes perfectly and nobody else withdraws. Quite frankly, this seems less plausible with every passing week. That is the practical problem. Now let's talk about the reputational damage if Israel stays. Firstly, there's been much debate about Eurovision's title sponsor, Moroccan Oil. This is an Israeli company that has faced much scrutiny over the last few years. Their supposed influence over the contest's decision-making process is, to be honest, non-existent, because an event on this scale does not live and die on the back of a single sponsor. What we do know, though, is that the EBU did hire a commercial director for Eurovision this year, which indicates they're placing a high importance on striking new commercial and sponsorship deals. In the reputational chaos and ongoing cycle of withdrawals in which the contest finds itself at the moment, and will continue to if Israel remains, this is going to be an impossible job, thereby cutting off yet more potential sources of revenue. It'll increase reliance again on participation fees from cash-strapped broadcasters and further imperil the contest's very existence. This damage is already being done because the ongoing cloud of controversy and lack of clarity of what kind of contest we're going to have is going to be toxic to any potential sponsor. All of this is before we get to the horrific moral choice the contest would be making and what effect that would have on its core audience. Eurovision's audience skews more liberal and, increasingly, younger and more active on social media than average. These are exactly the groups who are most likely to have strong feelings about the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and the most likely to have a strong and lasting negative reaction to the contest if Israel remains. We've seen this being borne out already over the last couple of years. There is no two ways about this. These core groups are going to desert the contest if Israel does not get removed. They're already doing so in some places. As well as that, this isn't the kind of impact that you can scrub off in a year or two. This is a stain that will last for a long, long time. This is the future of the contest that could be chosen for us. Luckily, it does not have to be this way. The alternative is certainly not easy, nor will it be free from controversy, but it has much larger margins for error, and most importantly, it's just the right thing to do. If Israel is removed from the contest, as it stands, no countries have pledged to withdraw as a reaction. The most ardent supporter of Israel in the contest is Germany, and they would be the first place that you'd look for some kind of solidarity withdrawal. Even they haven't taken such a step, with their broadcaster issuing a statement to the Eurotrip podcast saying that they support the consultation process and the decisions to be made by the EBU. I should emphasize here, the rumors reported in the media that Italy and Germany would withdraw from Eurovision if Israel was removed were just that. They're rumors, there is no basis to them. Most importantly though, there is a margin for error if Israel is removed and other countries withdraw as a reaction. Even if there was a few withdrawals from the contest, 2 semi-finals would still be possible. That would help avert a lot of the most critical threats to Eurovision's financial health. At the same time, we shouldn't expect Israel to just slip quietly away into the night if they are removed. There will be an immediate, widespread campaign that will call for them to be reinstated, and it's going to be led by much of the same right-wing forces who have mobilized for Israel already over the last 2 years. These kinds of political movements do not miss a chance to attack public broadcasting either. It is a common target for them, and this will be a prime opportunity. In many ways, the EBU's approach of obfuscating the decision behind a consultation process and then leaving the final say to an obscure EBU board rather than making it seem like the direct choice of the broadcasters does help a little bit with this. It creates a distance between each individual broadcaster and the decision. That means, in theory, broadcasters like Germany, for example, could condemn the decision if they wanted to, but then choose not to withdraw. Because they can simply say, well, the EBU's consultation found this result, we disagree with it, but that's what the consultation found, so we're going with it. In any case, these kinds of political headwinds are actually the ones that Eurovision is much more adept at dealing with. The kinds of people who would be so furious about Israel's removal that they would boycott the contest altogether are not the kinds of people who watch Eurovision. Many of these are the very same politicians who bragged on social media that they were voting for Israel in 2024 and 2025 while not watching the contest at all. It's a vastly preferable choice to take a short-term hit from groups that already hate you instead of taking a long-term hit from your base viewership that will alienate them permanently. I want to sum up this video with a call to action because it is far past time that the right thing was done here. Between now and December, every single broadcaster in Eurovision is going to have to make a decision. They're going to make that decision above all else based on the domestic picture surrounding Israel in their countries. That picture has been changing, and that is what has enabled some broadcasters to speak out already. If that picture continues to shift over the next few months, more and more broadcasters will be able to do that. Eurovision is a beautiful thing, and it's developed into that beautiful thing over an almost 70-year history now. In the last 2 years, we've seen that beautiful thing instrumentalized and abused to serve the Israeli government's cynical political agenda. They are interested only in the burnishing of their own international image and giving the impression of some kind of perverse international approval for their genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. In that time, those last 2 years, the contest has gone from thriving in 2023 to life support now. We have a rare chance to start the healing process, but it's only going to come once, and if we don't act now, the contest as we know it is going to die. Now is the time to write to your broadcaster and to attend protests and make your voice heard, and to contribute to the wider movement that is drawing attention to the plight of Palestinians. It is thanks to the relentless effort of activists and journalists, especially those in Gaza who have continued to operate under constant threat of death, that we have seen with our own eyes everything that we need to see to make this decision. Allowing Israel another platform to brush its crimes under the carpet would be morally unconscionable. Israel must go. This must be it. If action is not taken now, there won't be a contest left to save.